limited space on it, but it's a lot of space.
Hi, I'm Wanda Whitaker, and I'm with Anchored in Spirit, and also the Racial Reconciliation Project, also co-founded by myself along with Galen Logan Jr. and Peter Rubin. For those who don't know about the Racial Reconciliation Project, it's a series of workshops for white folk in particular, entitled Free Yourself First, a Journey of Healing and Action for white folk. It's a place for white people to have a safe place to come to actually a place of atonement through contemplative learning and practices. It also helps raise funds for Village Connect, a nonprofit organization based in San Leandro, California, that provides sustainable and positive transformative services for the mostly Black and Brown community. So today, I have the pleasure of talking with visionary artist, muralist, and teacher, Laurie Marshall, and we'll be looking at the role of art in advocacy and other issues regarding acts of truth and reconciliation. Just to give you some background about Laurie, Laurie has been working for racial justice since she was 5 and heard Martin Luther King speak at a Quaker conference in 1954. She is a creative activist, based in Novato, California, who makes collaborative murals with the goals of bringing diverse people together to heal community. Heartbreak, I love that. She still struggles with her unconscious implicit bias and white privilege, and it's a lifelong learning process. Wow. You know, Laurie, I first met you about 10 years ago at the Peace Cafe on Haight Street in San Francisco. Do you remember that?
I do indeed.
I was there to hear Medea Benjamin speak. And then I began to run into you several times. And one of the last places I saw you was at the Pachamama luncheon in San Francisco. And at that point, I said to myself, I've got to know this woman. I've got to get to know her. And if you read the book, The Celestine Prophecy, you know that if you keep running into a particular person, that means that person has a message for you. So I'm going to start off by asking some questions to you, Laurie, and these questions are going to be specifically about being white, a person of who of the white so-called race, which we know there is no race, there's only one race, the human race, but your viewpoint from that perspective. So I want to start off by asking the question, as a muralist and visionary artist, how can art be an advocate for bridging the racial divide?
Great question, Wanda, and I'm very honored to be here. Art is a way of pointing a finger and saying, this is important. That's what Marcel Duchamp said. And so when you make art that portrays unity, not through sameness, but through diversity, unity through imagination, that helps heal. And when you have conflicting people making art together, that opens up possibilities that are not there when people don't have common experiences. And when you make art about people of color, that says that people of color matter, that they are important. So those are some of the ways, you know, it's the actual process of making art. It's also the imagery that you portray.
And I've been in a room with you on several occasions and watched you facilitate groups when things can come up, and you're so great at diffusing them and bringing to the surface things that especially young people may have on their heart. But you have a way of reaching them, and I think you reach them through your heart for things to come up in a way that makes them feel safe. And through the art, it transforms them. So I completely agree with you, and I am an admirer of who you are and what you do.
Could I just add that when we make art, we make a decision and we take action. That is an act of empowerment. And when you make a decision and take action, like I'm going to use this color, I'm going to make this line, we use our prefrontal and our neocortex, our thinking strategic mind, and we can't use our worry survival brain at the same time. So making art actually calms people because it empowers people and it helps people to open their heart. And what guides me in my art and in my life, which I am not perfect at by any means, is creating what Martin Luther King called the beloved community, where everybody's voice and vision matters.
You know, you bring up a good point there, because I remember speaking to you at one time about your upbringing. So I want to ask you, how did your parents and family raise you to see racism, your whiteness, and the history of racism within your lineage?
That's I love this question. I was blessed to have two parents who thought a lot about racism and equality. So I was born in 1949, raised as a child in the 50s and 60s. And my parents, who were of different religions and married in 1943, they chose a religion that made sense to both of them. My father was Jewish from New York City. My mother was Lutheran from central Pennsylvania. And they became Quakers. And Quakers believe that there is that of God in everyone. That is the idea. It's very simple. And because of that, Quakers did not believe in slavery. Although they had slaves when they first came to this country, they then were the first people to abolish slavery. And they had a very active role in the Underground Railroad. And my family had people of color in our home in the white suburb of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, all throughout my life. We were kicked out of one of our homes because we had too many brown-skinned people come. And we were very aware of the racism. And it was talked about. My sister was part of the civil rights movement and went down to Mississippi and helped register voters. I was 16, she was 20. We participated in protests. My parents worked to get redlining laws eliminated in our white suburb, which is still predominantly white, but I think there was zero Black people living when I was growing up, and now there's like 7%. Pittsburgh is an extremely segregated city. And my parents created a youth program where, through the American Friends Service Committee, which is the action arm of the Quakers, where we were able to meet and have deep and meaningful conversations with people from all over the city, with kids who were different races, different classes, different religions. And the kids organized weekend seminars around topics that were of interest to us, like prisons, like population, like nuclear weapons. That was a time when we were very frightened of being destroyed by nuclear weapons. And my main social life was with a community of kids who were diverse, as opposed to my high school, which was diverse in terms of its Eastern European and Catholic and Jewish and mostly Protestant kids. So even with this incredible support to be aware of racism, I have discovered very deep biases that I have because of my privilege. And it has been a painful process and a very important process. So, as I said, lifelong learning.
Now, can you be honest about a time when you responded to racism with ignorance, perhaps?
Yeah. I was commissioned to make a mural in Novato by an organization called Age Friendly Novato, which was a new organization. And the goal of our mural was to make everyone in Novato feel included. And we had 200 people, 20 sessions. I took this 3 8-foot by 4-foot boards around to many different locations. And we had a collaborative design process. And towards the end of the mural, the person who had hired us, who got funds from the city of Novato, who had got funds from Rotary and other places, hired me and my assistant and colleague, Lily Lopez. She came to me and said there needs to be more white people in the mural. The mural was intended to go to the Margaret Todd Senior Center, which is 90% white elders. And our employer said, the people will feel offended if they don't see themselves in the mural. The white people will feel offended. And there was a time limit. The mural was coming to an end, and I didn't stand up to her. Mm-hmm. I didn't say, no, the mural does not need more white people. It's fine just the way it is. And so I added some more white people, and I also painted over some of the brown people. And Lily had said to me, why do we have to do this? And I said, well, because it's what our client wants and she's paying us. And Lily made a number of suggestions, and I didn't listen to her. And I ended up hurting the young brown people and Black kids that worked on the mural. And I realized that I just had this filter that you do what the client asks, and I did not hold firm. And I'd like to share the mural with you.
Sure.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
Beautiful.
So this is the final mural. And so I changed some, about 7 of the, I lightened up the skin of about 7 of the different figures. And it got a lot of attention. The kids were very upset, and we were going to have an unveiling last January in 2019. The kids wanted to have a protest, and the Age Friendly Novato people said, well, we're going to cancel the celebration. And there was news coverage, and I got interviewed by Wayne Friedman, and I acknowledged that I had done a no, I didn't acknowledge that I'd done a racist thing as much as I did. And I had a publicist who advised me to say that I felt terrible immediately when I was asked to do this. But in fact, I just did it. I didn't even process how terrible it was until the kids gave me feedback. And that it's been very painful. And one thing else I noticed about the mural is that I put the police and the fire people up here, and they're adding water. So the whole idea is that the water comes from the lake of Novato, and it's like our wisdom, and we share our wisdom with each other, the elders and the children and the parents. And so this flow of water is all, and it comes to the garden, symbolizes our wisdom. And again, as a white person, I look at the police and fire department as safe there to support us. And again, it took me a long time to see that. And kids, young people pointed it out to me as well. And Lily gave me Layla F. Saad's Me and White Supremacy Workbook, which is a journal process of answering questions about when have you practiced white exceptionalism. That's what I was doing. Oh, I'm exceptional because I've worked on issues of racism for all these years, so I don't have any filters. No. And Layla asked many, many good questions, and I highly recommend that all white people do this workbook. She also asks about your relationship to white saviorism. And I've worked with many youth of color, and I had to really face my white saviorism shit. And what the psychological work was that I did around that is I have a deep need to be needed. I had to really to be needed. And when I do harm to people of color because of my need to be needed, and it's going to be an issue all my life. I just have to check in with myself on every occasion and always ask for feedback for when things aren't working and listen to that feedback.
So
that was a tough one.
Yeah, that was a tough lesson to learn. But you know what? We're all here to learn lessons, and just being in that position, you're able to be with other groups in a different kind of way.
Yes.
So in the future, when you meet with other groups, especially multicultural groups, and put together murals such as the one that you've done here, which is beautiful, by the way. I love this mural. Very vibrant, and this looks like a very vibrant community. Then you'll be able to diffuse those issues in the very beginning. And I love the fact that you actually did the work. You put in the work by going through the workbook, journaling, and really going into yourself to find what was behind the issue. Yes. And always there's something behind the issue. And sometimes something like wanting to be needed comes from your ancestral lineage. It's something that's passed down.
Absolutely. It's part of my ancestral trauma. And I so honor the work that you and Galen and Mr. Rubin, is it Peter?
Yeah, Peter.
Are doing, because we have to face our ancestral trauma to understand this. And this age-friendly Novato mural drama is not over. The mural was never installed. It was installed temporarily at the senior center, and the seniors loved it. And they never said anything about feeling offended that they didn't see enough white faces. But that was not the view of the person who was organizing and employing us. So yeah, it's big medicine.
But I noticed that there is a lot of art around Black Lives Matter. And if you go into places, especially downtown Oakland, they've turned downtown Oakland into like a museum. Especially when the businesses were boarded up. We had artists coming out on the street, just doing whatever came to them. And it's a beautiful, beautiful place to go and just look at the art. And so I want to know, how do you feel about that, especially art's role in the Black Lives Movement? And are you doing any particular art around the Black Lives Movement? Now I know that you've done a mural called What Makes America Great.
Yes, yes.
And that was a beautiful mural. and it was a chance for people to meet intergenerationally and work on something where you could really talk about our values.
Yes.
So are you doing anything else like that around Black Lives Matter?
I'm doing a project that I began in August of 2019 that is just being completed. And you were part of this project. It's the restorative justice singing tree that we began through the Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth. And Oakland has designated itself as a restorative justice city, I believe the first in the nation.
Mm-hmm.
And Our Joy has done a lot of work breaking the school to prison pipeline. When you bring restorative justice practices to handle behavior issues, you don't just deal with the symptoms and have a cop that arrests the kid that's acting out. You have a system where people meet in circle, and everybody who is impacted by whatever happened shares their experience, and every voice is needed. So having a restorative way of handling discipline changes the school to prison pipeline. So I was honored to make a series of 3 murals, one led by high school kids, one led by middle school kids, and one led by elementary school kids around the issue of restorative justice. And we taught restorative practices as we made the mural. And I have the mural to share with everyone.
Great.
So this is one of the, oh, you know what? I think this got stuck on top of the other power.
That's okay.
Let's see. I think I need to escape here and go back.
That's fine.
To fix something. Thank you. So we COVID came and we weren't able to finish it in person. And I'm just about to add leaves to this. So this mural was co-designed with 15 students from Ames High School. The students were from China, Sudan, El Salvador, and Ethiopia. And this is using the Oakland's logo as the center piece to honor Oakland as the restorative justice city. And the Sankofa bird, looking back at ancestors and history and honoring the wisdom of Africa. And we portrayed Africa as the size of the continent that it is, because Africa is much smaller than it really is. And the people that are on the, that are welcoming the tree and loving the tree are people who are important to restorative justice for Oakland youth. They're spiritual teachers, including Credo Mutwa, who is a Sangomo from South Africa, and Fanya, who was the, I don't know, I can't remember her last name right now, who was the founder of Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth. And this is Godomo Sarah Mabele, who is another spiritual teacher with the African tradition. And this is Louisa Tish, an amazing storyteller. And the staff of Restorative Justice for Oakland Youth have gone to Africa and learned from the people in South Africa, from the Zulu people, and from people in Kenya, to bring the indigenous restorative practices of Africa to this country. Is very exciting. And The other people are some of the students who worked on the project. This is one of the students, and this is one of the students, and this is one of the students, and that's one of the students. And then other elders who, and people that we met um, just as we worked on the mural together. So through saying restorative justice is important, these beautiful humans are important. This is a Native American elder, by the way. That's been one of the ways that I support the Black Lives Matter movement. And I got to paint these beautiful people as the kids started them. They did a great job starting them. And then I had to finish them because we couldn't be together. And that was just a great way for me to honor the importance of Black lives.
This is a beautiful mural and very multicultural.
Yes.
Extremely multicultural. And the fact that you have Black icons on them that people can relate to, especially the restorative justice group, I think is very important because that brings out history. It brings out knowledge that some people don't know about.
Yes, and I wanted to share that you were responsible for bringing Shango to the mural, the god of fire and thunder. And because of that, we then put Oshun on here, the goddess of fertility, love, and beauty. And this golden eagle, the golden eagle is the mascot for Ames High School. And the Miwok, I live on Miwok land. I'm on the stolen land of the Miwok people. They have a song that is about golden eagle, won't you look down upon the children, upon the children. And I incorporated the golden eagle. And this is our fire, our air, our earth, and our water.
Laurie, what do you see as the difference between when you're working with younger groups of people and when you're working with more adults, particularly white adults?
I think that people who were born after the moon walk and we photographed the earth hanging in space, people who were born with that vision of the earth hanging in space have an understanding of that we're a species on this planet together, and that the older adults who weren't born with that have more divisive lenses. And the older adults are more afraid and more rigid in their paradigms that they look through the world. And I find art is an amazing tool to dismantle that rigidity. Because when you start to make a decision and take action and say, oh, I could put this here and I feel like that color, and what if I tried this? You start playing and you start experimenting, and you're not doing the same old. And that's another reason why art is very powerful in dismantling racism.
And you're being very creative.
Yeah.
You're using the right hemisphere. You're not so much left brain. And it takes you into a different space. And it takes us into the space of knowing that we are all creators. And we're creating everything using our imagination, and art is a place where that takes you. So I am in agreement with you about that. Is there anything else you would like to add to the conversation, Laurie?
Yeah, I think you asked some questions in the ones that you sent with me about what am I doing about policy in my
Right, and
community?
especially in your community and also the education system.
Yeah. So those are great questions. And my first thought, not enough. I'm,
Okay,
I'm not doing
right.
enough with the policies. Um, I'm, I am starting to offer a training for people in facilitating collaborative murals and around trees at the Singing Tree Project. And in condensing 20 years of my experience into 80 pages, one of the things that I saw was really important to include is that cultural competence is essential for the success of any collaborative mural. And our cultural competence has to be based on the fact that in 1492, a pope said that there is a doctrine of discovery that any Christian nation who goes to a non-Christian nation is free to take their land and bodies. And that doctrine of discovery has made structural white supremacy dominate around the planet.
Wow.
And it is the air we breathe. And it is very important to be conscious of that and to decolonize ourselves and to keep understanding our ancestors' role in that process of colonizing and decolonizing. And I heard a Hidden Brain podcast about implicit bias that was very profound. It talks about a test that anyone can take online, and I think it's called the implicit bias test. And what this test does is it measures your reaction time to making a decision. So they begin with, you are supposed to group all the red playing cards together and all the black playing cards together. And we do it really fast. Then you're supposed to pair the diamonds with the spades and the clubs with the hearts. And we do it much slower because we're not used to grouping that way. Then it shows positive words with white people and negative words with black people, and positive words with black people and negative words with white people. And it records your reaction time. And almost everyone in our culture chooses white people positive. I did. and black men negative. And I did. It's scary. It's deep.
Yeah, it's
And
ingrained. This is definitely ingrained in the culture.
it is so, yeah, it is the air we breathe. And they found that one group of people was able to not do it, was able to not have implicit bias, and those were highly trained policemen.
Really? Wow.
But it fell apart if they have rest, food, or they had an extreme amount of stress. You can be trained have implicit bias, but it's hard and it takes a lot of work. Did I just freeze?
Just froze for a minute, but you're okay.
Yeah, yeah. So as an educator, the policy I want to see is, first of all, every child being asked, what is your joy? What are you interested in? What makes you feel useful? And for every child, individual fascinations to be nurtured by exposing them to incredible knowledge and experts in their field. I believe all children should be treated like graduate students because they come in knowing what they're interested in on a very deep level. Mm-hmm. And we need to fertilize their imaginations with great stories. Rudolf Steiner asked the question, he's the founder of the Waldorf curriculum, what story does this soul need at this point in their development? And right now, our nation's soul needs stories of Black experience and Brown experience and Native experience and Asian experience. We need to hear these stories because on TV, we got white stories most all the time.
And some of them are false stories, but okay.
Yes, or many.
It's called his story, right? Okay.
Yes, right. So in our education system, if we are truly valuing every child and what they've come in with, not just what we think they have to need, like an industrial model of everyone has to be the same, will generate tremendous help. And another interest that children always have is to be useful. That's why I asked that question, what makes you feel useful? Kids want to do real work, and we have real work to do. We have real work on climate change, and we have real work on racism, and we have real work on socially equitable economics to eliminate the violence of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
So asking kids not to do academic exercises, but asking them, how can we bring down the CO2? How can we make the water clean in your neighborhood? Let's solve that one problem and take it to however far it goes. I'm reminded of, in Kentucky, there was a mountain called Black Mountain. Mm-hmm. And a 7th grade teacher asked her class, what I will support you doing research on whatever you want to do. And one of the kids raised their hand and said, well, the coal company wants to cut off the top of Black Mountain. What's that going to do to us and to the plants and to the water and to the animals? And another boy raised his hand and said, well, our daddies work for the coal company, so that might not be such a good idea. And the teacher said, I will support you. So this class researched the effect on the water, the animals, the plants, the people, the economy. And they presented their findings to the city council, to the state council, to the and the newspapers. And not only did the top of Black Mountain not get cut off, but it got bought by the community to hold forever sacred. And the little boy who said, our daddies worked for the coal company, at the end said, we made history. And that's the kind of work that kids are born to do. And we need them. We need them to solve recycling and heating and cooling. And we need to teach them in biomimicry to mimic nature and not create all these poisons, because nature doesn't make poisons. Nature makes food as their waste.
Yeah, and we need to extend that to the Black community as well, because there is a lot of advocacy that goes on, particularly in the white community amongst young people. We need the same advocacy in the Black community. I do see remnants of it here and there with what's happening now, and technology has, of course, is one of the things that has helped boost that, so to speak, especially among young people. But advocacy around nature, for example, I would like to see more of that with people of color, along with racial issues. As we get over this racial divide, I think we can go on to other issues that affect us as a community at large.
That makes me think of Michelle Eldridge and the beautiful work that he's doing with juices and fruits and cast-offs of grocery stores of their juices to make healthy drinks with ginger and turmeric and permaculture growing of food and essential oils, all important.
Yes, he's done a great job especially the Oakland community. Mm-hmm. I take my hat off to him.
Me too. And a great artist.
Well, this has been a great conversation. Again, yeah. This is Laurie Marshall. You can contact her at www.singingtreeproject.org if you want more information. If you want to hire her for a muralist or a project, please feel free to contact her there. Again, I'd like to emphasize this is pre-promoting the Racial Reconciliation Project, which is a series of workshops entitled Free Yourself First, a journey of healing and action for white folk. And it's a place for white people to have a safe place to come to atonement through contemplative learning and practices. It also helps raise funds for Village Connect, a nonprofit organization based in San Leandro, California, that provides sustainable and positive transformative services for the mostly Black and Brown community. Again, my name is Wanda Whitaker, and I'll see you next time. And thank you, Laurie.
And I'm signing up. I'm going to be a part of this conversation.
Okay, great.
Very important.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
See you next time.
Yes, my joy.